Good afternoon. It's Andrew Sleigh from Sprott Money, and I'm here with Kai Hoffmann today. And it's a little bit of a switch up. I was interviewed by him on his channel at SOAR Financially on podcast and YouTube, and we had a great time. We wanted to come back and have Kai over here so that we can have a chat on this side of the pond. So, Kai, thank you very much for coming back to join me and have a great conversation again, like we had before. And welcome to Sprott Money.
Andrew, really appreciate the invitation. It was great chat last time. So a lot has happened though since we spoke, and which was only about 2-3 weeks ago here, maybe 4 at best. Yeah. So time's moving fast. Lots to catch up on, of course.
One thing I wanted to cover off where last time we spoke, a lot of questions to me, and as I wanted to hear, since you're in Germany, I wanted to hear a little bit about what's going on in Europe and discuss that a little bit, and then we'll see where our discussion goes from there. So
yeah, absolutely.
In Germany itself, and then maybe expand to other nations around your area.
It's a bit of a sensitive topic being here in Germany, right? Politics are never easy. Germany has a big challenge ahead of itself. We're in the middle of, I don't know, I wouldn't even call it a turnaround, but reinventing ourselves maybe right now. We've always been the beneficiary of cheap gas, cheap defense, and now that is changing. We have to spend more money on defense. Our gas is not cheap anymore. Our energy bills have exploded due to some policy mistakes, of course, as well. Shutting off our nuclear reactors is, in my opinion, a big no-no. Now we're struggling. The economy is struggling. We see it. Volkswagen and many others have to close down their factories, have to let people go. Unemployment is ticking higher. It's not fairly high yet. 6.3% or so in Germany, which is still above normal. It's definitely not full employment right now. And we've been in recession in Germany for the last 3 years almost. GDP growth is non-existent right now. It's pretty much flat at zero. And the politicians are struggling to reinvent the wheel here, really coming up with creative solutions. The ones that are being presented are being ignored, like just turning on the nuclear reactors and sending us or providing us with cheap energy. It's just being ignored. People are telling us that the nukes are already being dismantled. We can't restart them, which is a bunch of hogwash in my opinion. And that's what we're struggling with. Now we loosened the debt brake, which has been, I wouldn't say holding us back, but it definitely didn't allow us to spend much. So we're actually financially in a decent position compared to other nations around the globe. France, Italy, the US, all about 120% debt to GDP, roughly. So Germany's at 63%. So we're at almost half. So we do have some spending room here. Not necessarily, like I'm still trying to figure out if it's the right way to do it. But if everybody's around you spending like drunken sailors, you got to do something to keep up and stay competitive.
So you mentioned Volkswagen. So what exactly, how much have they shut down for plants? Because I've heard some of it. I don't know if I've heard all of it. So can you be specific on how many plants Volkswagen shut down?
I think they're still negotiating the final terms, but there's already conversations about some of those plants being taken over by other producers, car manufacturers that want to produce electric vehicles, for example. It's a hot debate here because now the EU is taking a step back on the, what do you call it, getting rid of ICE vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles. There was a deadline by 2020, I think it was 2035, and that's been sort of lifted because it's just not feasible. It's 2025 right now. Yes, we see EV sales, we see plug-in hybrid sales increasing. That's all perfect, but the government subsidies have been reduced. European cars on the global market are not really competitive per se. That's one of the reasons Volkswagen has been struggling. The ID cars, the ID Buzz, the ID3 and 4 are not doing so well in terms of sales. They're expensive in compared to other cars like the BYD vehicles. Even BMW is producing fairly expensive electric vehicles. We just cannot compete, and that's what's hurting us right now. It's not just a function of energy costs, by the way. It's just overall cost structures of the car makers here in Europe that we cannot compete with global car manufacturers, in particular from Asia right now. And I think that's what is holding Volkswagen back. BMW, Mercedes are doing a little better right now. They still have that luxury segment that's saving them. The margins are higher there, of course. So that's what's keeping them afloat.
I saw a report somewhere in the last few months that Volkswagen was talking about retooling and building military equipment since they we're thinking about shutting down for auto manufacturing. So I'm assuming that's somewhere in the works as well, that may occur, and that's not a
I
good
believe
sign
like
either.
Rheinmetall might be taking over one of the factories. I think that's one of the headlines I've read as well here, Andrew. So you might be right there.
And then, of course, what happened the last week and a half? We have the Spain scenario that I've been sort of catching some reports on and all that. Because of the green energy scenario, that the tension that was put on the electrical grid, and then it kind of snapped, and it was milliseconds away from blacking out all of Europe or something along that magnitude. But as it was 5 countries that went down in power, and then the week after that, they're talking about if you had a digital CBDC, it would have worked even when the power was out, which is they float this crap out at the best of times. But anyway, what have you heard, if anything, different than that for Spain, Portugal, France, other areas that were out of power? Any comments on that stuff?
Yeah, I like the idea of renewable energies. Don't get me wrong. Like, it sounds like I'm always very negative on them, but they do serve a purpose. We do want a greener world. We want a cleaner world. So I think that's a given. Spain, of course, a lot of sun in Spain, a lot of solar energy being produced there. And of course, the grid just could not take it. Like, there's no storage capacity for solar energy. There was just, as you said, too much tension on the grid. It spiraled out of control. Portugal, France, Spain saw blackouts, right? Interesting enough, Iberdrola is like the Spanish power company, was using that opportunity to bring back the conversation of shutting down one of the last nuclear reactors in Spain, because we're saying, well, we need some baseload here. Nuclear can provide that. It's an interesting discussion. I think the pendulum towards regenerative energy and alternative energy has swung a little too far without installing the infrastructure necessary behind it. We have the same problems in Germany. Like, we have some great ideas, but we don't have the infrastructure to support it. Wind power from the North Sea needs to be shipped down to the south in Bavaria, and we're not allowing the power grid to be built out, the power transmission lines to be built out, because NIMBYism is very strong in Germany. So that's not happening. So I think that's something we can learn from that, and it's too bad that our politicians shut the door yet again, even after the election and the election promises that have been made on nuclear energy in Germany. And that's very, very frustrating to see, because it's keeping us back. It's holding us back. We need cheap energy. We've had a lot of heavy industry, especially in the western part of Germany, that's just not competitive anymore. That's shutting down, and it's very sad to see that die.
So the reason I go through some of this, and some of our viewers might be asking, we're talking about all this stuff that's happening in Europe, is that this all has an impact on the financial system and our economies. And so I wanted to get a feel for what was happening over there, because Europe's got some real, massive challenges going on. And, if you start destroying the energy grid, or it can't handle the direction that our political leaders are taking them in various countries, and you start having this cascade effect and power outages and whatever, you just can't have industry running properly. And if costs go through the roof, then you've got all kinds of more complications with, manufacturing goes somewhere else where there is cheap energy. So it's shutting down the economy, in that way that these people are doing. And this is why I wanted to talk about it a little bit, was just, to explain to viewers that this green energy scenario that is being pushed by the globalist agenda has a severe cost attached to it, and that is, destruction of jobs, manufacturing, and grids will go down, and they want to push to all this electrical power, like battery operated cars, trucks, buses, whatever you want to say. And there's no money being spent to increase the capacity of the grids anywhere that I've seen, and that's by design, because they're gonna have this scenario play out, and then realize, oh, sorry, the plan for battery cars didn't work out because there's not enough grid, and so now we're just going to switch to 15-minute cities or some stupid thing like that. And so this is just for viewers to be aware that this is being done in Canada, where they want to push, electrical, and nobody's buying that stuff anymore. It's it's failing on the vine. But there's no money being put into any infrastructure for power to speak of that I'm aware of, I've seen, that can serve the capacity requirements of battery operated everything. And that's going to be a catastrophe for the economy as they shut diesel and engine gas powered cars down. And I think Carney in Canada wants to ban gas powered cars by 2030 being sold.
Yeah, good luck with that. The EU is walking back their stance right now. I can't remember if it was 2030 or 2035. It was a ridiculous target in my opinion because it doesn't make any sense. It's not achievable in that regard. Like even if you come from the mining side, we don't have the resources to do it. And as you said, we don't even have the infrastructure. So yes, like the goals are interesting, but they're not achievable at this point. And Germany is investing with lifting the debt rate close to $1 trillion right now, or euros, sorry, trillion euros into the economy. A lot of it is going, of course, into defense. The Green Party got $100 billion to spend on green initiatives. We'll have to figure out what that actually looks like. Maybe more bike lanes, across Germany. Maybe that's an improvement, but. We'll have to see what that money's going to get spent on. Germany, like we're exactly 80 years post World War II. So we need to spend a lot of money on infrastructure. We haven't spent enough at all. Our train system is failing. It's getting worse by the day. Delays, disruptions, cancellations, because the system cannot keep up. It's the best example of a failing system after 80 years. Like we were 80 years post World War II. A lot of money has been spent post World War II to bring back the economy, bring back infrastructure, and that needs to be just reinvested yet again. Like it's just natural to reinvest that money, and I hope that money is being spent wisely, not spent on some ideals that are not really helpful. Of course, a lot of money will be wasted as always, but we need to reinvest, and I'm glad that we lifted that debt brake. I think it'll be great for Germany's economy. Yes, there will be some pain, there will be some travel disruptions and many other things, like a lot of bridges need to be renewed across certain autobahns and places like that and highways, but we will need to do that investment just for the future, just to even remain competitive. Like we barely are, but if we want to keep up, then we need to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the same problems going on in Canada and US. The infrastructure that they built, from the value of the dollar, 60, 70, 80 years ago, you could do a lot more with dollars than you can today. So we're trying to replace a dam or a bridge today when it might have cost a few $1,000,000, 50, 60 years ago, now is hundreds of millions of dollars. And even in my own company with Sprott Money, almost every day when people are traveling into the office, I see a message on our signal on their phone that train's delayed, train is broken, train is this, train is that, and it's all been very apparent this year. Like in the last, since beginning this year, like the last 4 months, it's like almost every day there's a problem with the trains in Toronto, bringing somebody in from wherever. And I'm like, this wasn't happening for the first, few years I was here at this company. Like it was a blue moon when something like that happened. And now it's multiple times a week, it seems. So it's interesting that you talked about the trains are just, having problems all the time. So this critical infrastructure stuff that's not been, renewed and replaced and whatnot is all coming to a head. And I that's going to be very interesting to see where all that goes, because it's going to be difficult if the infrastructure can't transport people to go to work in any kind of reliable way. What does that mean?
Yeah, just imagine the economic damage of missing a meeting. All right. Like it's tough to put a value on that, but there's a lot of economic damage being done by a train being delayed. Like I take the S-Bahn in, which is like a local regional train, and I've missed meetings before because the train, they didn't have enough personnel. There was something wrong with the track, things like that. And that's a lot of damage as well. It's not just the cost of repairing or laying down a new set of tracks here. It's also the economic damage and missed opportunities in that regard, having to reschedule those meetings. Maybe it was an opportunity that wouldn't come back any other way. So that's the real damage here, and that's what we're suffering from right now.
So anything else going on in Europe that comes to mind. And it's a pretty broad general question, but I only get to hear a few things that, like I depend on a few people like yourself and a few other podcasters that are in Europe to sort of, get a little bit of boots on the ground stuff. But is there anything else that comes to mind that's going on that our listeners, might be keen to know what's happening across the pond?
Yeah, shocking development is that we're geopolitically irrelevant right now. Europe is. Every individual country and combined as well. You might have seen the photo of Friedrich Merz, Macron, Keir Starmer. There was a fourth one, I forgot who it was, and Trump was on the phone, apparently. They're sitting around the telephone talking with President Trump, potentially discussing here the Ukraine crisis and how to handle. Oh, Zelensky was at the table as well, but there was a fourth one. I forgot who it was. Or fifth one, sorry. And my point is, though, like apparently there's talks happening tomorrow as we record this on Wednesday. Talks happening in Turkey on Thursday. Trump might even be attending, but Europe does not play a role in this. Like the EU is always used sort of as a threat against Russia, meaning the Ukraine will join the EU, will probably station troops there, NATO will be present, but the EU itself doesn't play a role in any of the negotiations. That's very worrisome. Like we're being ignored in pretty much anything. Tariffs are being slapped on our European products. Besides the UK, nobody's really struck a deal yet. And we'll have to figure out what that actually means, what the long-term ramifications are. But personally, I'm a bit miffed that we don't play a role geopolitically. We haven't invested, like from a German perspective, our army, our Bundeswehr is not relevant right now. I remember a case where we were shipping missiles to the Ukraine and they couldn't use them because the boxes were moldy. Right, that's sort of the state of Germany and the German Bundeswehr. So I do applaud that we're investing a lot of money in there because we can't rely. Like I'm being very pragmatic. We can't rely on the U.S. or anybody else to cover and pay for our defense. Like yes, after World War II, Germany wasn't allowed to have an army and to rearm. Things happened, but it's 2025. We're 80 years later, 2 generations, 3 generations later. Things have changed. Hopefully, we don't repeat the mistakes of our forefathers here. But yeah. It's time, and it's kind of moronic. Like it's kind of ironic, not moronic, but that the world wants Germany to rearm. Germany rearm. That's something you wouldn't have heard 80 years ago, for example, right? Yeah, so I got to kind of laugh when I hear about that, but it's true. Like I'm painting a very negative picture here, but I'm very unhappy with how we're being presented abroad. We're just being ignored. We're irrelevant. I would say we're almost being laughed at. Like the only thing that makes the news these days are stabbings. So we have our inner political issues. Immigration, of course, is a big worry for us internally. We don't know how to handle it. The new government is showing a bit more of an aggressive stance, but we have yet to see whether they deliver on it. Borders are being patrolled again. That's a good sign. Asylum seekers are being turned away, rightly or wrongly. That's a different humanitarian question. That's not part of this discussion here. But that's what we're seeing right now. And I want Germany to be relevant again. We were a superpower not too long ago.
So if you said that European Union is irrelevant, so is it NATO that's controlling and calling the shots, or is it just a couple of countries that are doing this?
Well, if it's NATO, it's the U.S. Right? Right. That's calling the shots. Yes, we have. I think Mark Rutte right now. He's Dutch. He's the president of NATO or whatever his title is. So he's a warmonger though. Like a couple of weeks or a few months ago, he said, "Well, prepare for war in 3 years." It's like, why? Like, why would we prepare for war? Like, there's no reason to do that. I'm 99% certain that Russia has no intention of attacking a NATO member. That would be absolutely suicidal, in my opinion, and it does not make any sense. Like any good crime and detective novel, you always have to ask motivation. And if you don't have a motive, besides, of course, madness, there's always that. I can't look into Putin's brain and figure out if there's a synapse not connected properly, right? That I can't control. But from a rational point of view, there's zero motive. So the warmongering going on here, hospitals training for war, exercising, like having exercises about like emergency, what do you call it, like emergency drills, right? Yeah. The government, the local state governments running around asking, okay, who was a reservist back in the day? We need to create lists of people who used to be in the reserves. Like, why are we doing this? Like, we should have probably always done this, like, do these drills. But now the media is regurgitating it, and there's a lot of fear being created, which is absolutely unnecessary.
Yeah.
And that's something that has me worried. Not sure what the end goal is, to be quite honest, and what our motivation is to be so fear-mongering. If it's really just to open our wallet and be able to spend on defense, I don't think that fear-mongering was necessary, just show them a moldy box of ammunition.
Well, that comes into one of the reasons I ask that is, all wars are bankers' wars, and conflict is used as a cover-up for financial collapses. And so you have conflict, like I've certainly seen Macron and Sky, the guy from UK.
Keir Starmer.
Keir Starmer is reversing his initials. Anyway, Keir Starmer, thank you. And I'm not sure who else, but those two seem to be prominent with trying to be, mobilized in Europe, and we need to go to Ukraine and all that stuff. And it's like, why for? Just as you just said, Russia's not going to invade the rest of Europe, and they've been invaded 18 times. They haven't invaded Europe 18 times, or, so I see that as just leading up to printing more money, and a cover for the debt system collapse down the road. But I wanted to ask this because this is kind of like the cherry on top with regards to all these other questions. Actually, I have one more, and then I have a cherry on top. Is recently Spain had the Spanish finance ministry announced that if you want to take out more than 3,000 euros out of the Spanish bank, you have to get written permission 24 hours in advance. Otherwise, you risk a fine. And I'm sure, I can't remember what that level was, but if you want to take a larger amount, either 50 or 100 euros out, 100,000 euros out, if you don't give 72 hours notice to the Spanish finance ministry, you face a 150,000 euro fine. And to me, I'm like, okay, well, there's the writing. There's some more writing on the wall, because as soon as you have to ask the government for what you deposited at a bank, it's no longer yours. That's just proof positive right there. So any thoughts on that? Have you heard rumors of any of that anywhere else in Europe? Or
yeah, it's like, I've heard the same thing, but I wasn't sure if it was about taking money out or whether the bank just has to report that to the ministry. That's the one thing. It is worrisome. Cash is king. Capital controls are scary, quite honestly. But then again, in October, we'll be seeing the digital euro. And I'm still trying to figure out how they're trying to implement that. So it's all leading that way. During COVID, and we can jump to, that's a whole different rabbit hole. We can jump down, like what COVID was used for. But we've all been conditioned to use digital money anyway, meaning our credit cards, my watch. You could tap your watch and pay for a coffee. The last time I've used money it's actually today. I was confused. I was at a parking garage, and the machine didn't take any credit cards. But unfortunately I had cash on me. But so we're being trained and conditioned not to use cash. That is what's happening. Same in Germany. Really strict rules of taking money out of the banks that have to be reported. I think you cannot buy more gold for more than 2,000 euros these days as well. So you got to buy in small increments. Various amounts of capital controls being implemented, all with one goal: digital euro and control of what you're doing with your money.
I want to drill into that what you just said, because I remember when that occurred. Maybe 2 years ago, perhaps, or 3 years ago, I can't remember now, but that capital control in Germany, you were no longer allowed to buy more than X amount of gold. Just expand on that a little bit, exactly the ruling.
Oh, it's a good question. I'm not an expert on the bullion purchases here, Andrew, so I have to probably get back to you on that topic. But there are limitations on physical. Also, there's been tax increases on buying bullion in Germany as well. Like silver, for example, used to be, I hope I get my numbers right here, 7% VAT tax. Now it's 19. So it has been adjusted. Gold was always 19. That's our standard VAT rate here in Germany, VAT, value added tax. And I think that's really we call it like they're trying to get people away from buying bullion. Because all of a sudden you have a 19% premium on the spot price. Like, what's the point? You're only buying if you're really, really trying to protect yourself from something. It's not an investment. Meaning, it's like
Yeah,
a trade.
yeah. It was, from my recollection, it was. I didn't think there was any limits before, and then they limited to all of a sudden 10 grand. Sorry, 2 grand was the cash limit that you could buy for gold using
No.
or silver or whatever with cash. And it's like, oh, okay. Try and get out of the system in a hurry, and you're in deep trouble if you got a lot of money to move. And I was just curious for an update on if anything has happened since that. So the cherry on the top for me was what you had hinted at a minute ago was the announcement by Christine Lagarde for moving the European Union deadline for October to a CBDC. And I've said, that's now to me the writing on the wall, where it's and you after I say my piece here, you correct me if I'm wrong on any details because you're there and I'm here. But that to me, I've seen somewhere that's a QR code on a smartphone, and there's no longer a euro, and euro will be gone. And if that's correct so far, then to me, they have to extinguish the euro system prior to launching the QR code, because that's when you go from one financial system to another. You have to destroy one to get the public to take the other. And that's just the MO of history. And so I've been predicting that if that's the case, and let's say October 1 is the deadline, that means 1 to 3 months prior to that, they have to extinguish, the banks will go down and do bail-ins, and the financial system will go down. Everything's going to be, pulled down, and your euros that people have in savings in any description will be taken in one way or another and be impoverished. And then they bring out the euro with a universal basic income and all that. My conclusion to that was, okay, if that's going to happen in Europe, then they have to do that everywhere else, because, if that happens in Europe, then the banking system here in Canada is going down, and the US is going down. Like, it'll be all hell and chaos. And so they have to do it all at the same time if this is the plan. So July to September, I think we're going to see somewhere in there some spectacular things occur, and then lined up for October. So poke holes in that, whatever you can, Kai.
No, it's an interesting thesis, and I think it will play out that way. But the question is timing. I don't think it'll happen this summer, personally. From what I've read, and I'm by far no expert on digital currencies here in Europe. I know it's happening in October, but when I looked at it, it looked to me like more of a PayPal kind of system for now that is being sort of run at the same time. People are starting to get used to it. But I think you're right. At some point, we will have to see a massive shock to the monetary system that will push us towards CBDCs. There's no other way. It'll have to be a reset to a degree, whatever that looks like. And it comes down to discussions that we've had on our channel. And I'm not sure we talked about it, Andrew, but just a new Bretton Woods system. People use it. Yep. There needs to be a new monetary system. I don't think the world is just ready for that yet. We're still in the shoveling of the cards phase. The cards haven't been really dealt yet. I think that's what the US is working on with a tariff war, the restructuring of NATO, and the last word hasn't been spoken there yet either. I think we're still in that phase. Gut feel, that's really more gut feel. It feels like it's 2-3 years out, 3 years probably, before we can see some results in that regard. And we have 3 years now to get used to the digital euro and things like that. We haven't heard much from the US government in terms of the Fed coin being pushed through. But then again, in Asia, the digital currency just has recently been connected to the Asian banking system. Andy Schechtman I've had on the channel the other day, who's a real expert on that. Like, he really opened my eyes to that discussion and to that topic. So I'll have to do a lot more deep research when it comes to that. But they connected a digital renminbi to other Asian states and their payment systems, which is really, really important. So we're already seeing a couple of digital currencies being implemented. So far, there's silence on the US side in that regard. I think even Trump said at one point with me, there's not going to be a CBDC. I'm not sure if he's going to be walking that back. I haven't heard anything lately. I have to admit, I haven't looked into it either. But if he would have said something, I think it would have been picked up by media I'm following here. So
I think on that one, what they're doing is they know that that word is unpopular, so they're doing a bait and switch, and they're calling it a stable coin, and it'll just be run by J.P. Morgan, aka the Fed, whatever. But they're going to go down that road. U.S. has been ready to go to a CBDC for 3 years, and then they halted their progress because somewhere else wasn't ready, and they have to do this all at the same time. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. But I think the next couple of months are going to be very telling. Carney, who is now our prime minister, which, remember, I think we talked about this in our show, that I said I can't imagine he's not going to win because he was sent to Canada in a very timely manner, and they didn't send him here to lose. So it unfortunately came out to be true. But he's now talking about he just redid his cabinet shuffle and all that, and many of the minions under the Trudeau government are all still in the same spots or shuffled around to new positions, and he's talked about he's going to govern with what's the word he used, urgency, or something along that line of there's things that need to be done. He's going to do things quickly, and I don't think that's going to be boding well for us. So we're going to see what happens in the next couple of months. So turning the mic over to you for a moment, fire a few at me that for a change. I've been, I think, hammering away at you here so far. So throw something my way.
Yeah, like, what do you make of the trip of President Trump to the Middle East right now? Like, what's the goal here? Is obviously trying to drum up some business for the U.S., but do you want to interpret more into that whole trip?
I haven't seen anything on that yet myself personally. I just know that he, made a trip to Saudi Arabia, and there's been a couple of people have done some analysis and they've done some reports on it, and I haven't had a chance to listen to anything yet. So I really have I can draw a blank on that one at the moment. So if he's going there, I mean, the petrodollar is dead, so I don't know from that regard what's going to happen. Is it going to be something about gold? I don't know. That's what they've hinted about. So let's save that one for next time we chat, because I don't know much about it.
No, but
right now.
you just mentioned gold, and I think before in the record button, Andrew, we discussed it feels fairly calm in the markets right now. First 100 days, a lot of shock and awe. Right now, we're in the deal-making phase. But the market seems quite content that there seems to be more certainty now. Like the S&P erased all the losses for the year. Nvidia is actually green for the year now. Gold is now trending down. Admittedly, a lot of hype around gold the last few months here, the last couple of months. How do you see gold moving forward in regard to maybe other riskier asset classes like the S&P 500 or even Bitcoin to a degree?
Well, on the gold side, I think that's just a natural pullback during this calm period, and it's a good accumulation phase, and then there'll be another run because let's say the short to mid and then the mid to long term trend is we're going to have an awful lot of money printing going on, and that has nowhere to go for gold but up, and that's your bellwether indicator. So from a protection standpoint, you hold assets in gold and silver, and you will protect your purchasing power of your wealth. So I heard somebody say the other day that precious metals bull markets do their best to shake off the weak hands along the way. So I thought I've heard those kinds of terms before in stock terms, but I just it kind of hit home with me a little bit that you have these pullbacks that frustrate stackers for precious metals, and they should be rejoicing that this is part of the process of going higher. And
so should we buy the dip, Andrew?
I always buy the dip. If I have spare cash, anytime there's a dip, I buy. And I tell clients, I say, listen, don't get frustrated by this. When the powers that be are forcing metal down, they're going long and shorting. They're shorting it down to go long on the physical. And I said, so you need to play their game, and don't worry about the long term, or the short term aspects of, oh gosh, I wanted to hit the moon now. Don't worry about it. play their game and you'll eventually win because they're not playing to lose, and just accumulate every time there's a down time. Just buy and just keep your head in that mental space, and then you'll rejoice every time there's a slap down. Because I started buying silver maple coins when they're $18 each Canadian, and now they're 52. And a month or two ago, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't. I don't want to spend $50 for a coin. I'm used to buying them at cheaper. Now it's $52, and so every time there's a pullback, a couple bucks, I'd be thankful if I could pay 40 something again. But that's not going to happen, I don't think. So anyway, that's the mindset to have, is that it can be frustrating, but you just buy dips, keep dry powder, and keep buying along the way, and know that you'll have your wealth under your control, whatever you choose to put into metals, and you'll be thankful you have long term. And it's been an awesome performing asset over the last 100 years, particularly in these last end of currency cycles. This is when they've been the most powerful for people to have. And that's what we're going to experience, unfortunately, is all these currencies are going to have major problems. And you mentioned your debt for Germany, and ours in Canada, just for the federal debt, was 130 odd something percent, but our total debt of the country is 408% of GDP.
Yeah, I know the U.S. is much higher as well than the quoted 123% or whatever it is. So, comparing apples and oranges a little bit, I was trying to paint a picture, of course, but it is scary.
You guys have, and of course, Russia doesn't have any debt. Used to not have any debt. I'm not sure where it is now, with a conflict for 2 or 3 years now with Ukraine. I don't know where they are, but before all that nonsense happened, Russia had no debt in that country. They got rid of it all. So, spectacular position for the citizens of that country to have not the enslavement of debt over their heads. But anyway, it's going to be something else. So, anything else for me before we wind down?
No, I think that's pretty much it. You use the what do you call it? The calmity. What's the word when it's calm? Like,
oh yeah, the eye of the storm, the calm before the storm.
Yeah, something like that. Use it, as you said. Like, be wise about it, because I think we all know where this is going, right? And I think the water in the kettle is starting to boil. We'll hear the whistle very, very, very soon.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah. So, Kai, before we let go, let our listeners know where they can find you, because you do a podcast that's got lots of great interviews on it, and I want people to be able to find you and hopefully subscribe and follow you and support your work. And so let our audience know.
Yeah, tremendously appreciate that, Andrew. Yeah, it's you can see it on my shirt. SOAR Financially is the name of the podcast over on YouTube. So please make sure to visit us. Go check it out. Leave a comment, leave a like, and if you like it, make sure to subscribe to the channel as well. We do a number of things at SOAR Financial in general. We host the Deutsche Goldmesse. You can see it behind me. It's just started happening this week, actually, in Frankfurt. We do 2 conferences a year. This next one is in November, so make sure to check that out as well. GermanGoldShow.com, Deutsche Goldmesse. We do a lot of things. Recently launched an asset management firm as well called kamavest.com. Make sure to check that out. It's for European German-based, or it's a German-based asset management firm for German clients, or European clients primarily, of course. Go check it out. Let us know if you have any questions, and of course you can reach me through X. My DMs are open. Feel free to reach out at JRMiningGuy.
I have one final question before I let you go, Kai. I just thought of is, how easy is it to purchase physical bullion in Germany? How easily accessible is it?
It is easy. There's a shop just down the street here. So you can go to Degussa and just buy gold. You can pre-order it if you want to. They'll have it ready. Still very private, a lot of boxes. It's like a proper bank, or you can just store it with them as well. So it's still fairly easy. Certain limitations we discussed, but it's still easy to do.
Okay, so there's no shortages of being able to get it, was my primary.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Not in the quantities I buy, at least.
Just the odd time I've had some people call from various countries in Europe, like, hey, it's hard to get it here or whatever. And it's,
well, I wasn't trying to buy 7 figures worth of gold or so at one point, so that might be a little trickier.
All right. Well, listen, Kai, thank you very much for coming back and coming to my side of the pond to do an interview here with Sprott Money, and we could continue the conversation. And truly appreciate the work that you're doing with SOAR Financially on YouTube and trying to educate and bring awareness to people. And I hope that we have a discussion again in the near future. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Andrew. We really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks.